this is how a democracy becomes not just an autocracy. You'll recall on this program, President Jimmy Carter said, America is no longer a democracy. We are an oligarchy with unlimited political bribery. I think that's word for word. And a quote, by the way, that, after he said it on this program kind of went viral, and then the national media just stopped inviting him to come on. He was promoting a book, actually, at the time, his latest book about his, life well lived, I think was the title. But how is it that you can turn a country very quickly into a police state, essentially, while it still appears to be a democracy? Or appears to be anything. It's been probably a year or so since I've talked about this, and I have some familiarity with China before it became a capitalist communist power. In 1986, in November of 1986, I spent a little less than a month in Beijing, living at and studying at the Beijing International School for Acupuncture. It was there's actually a different name for it. I can't remember the name. It's a long name. And but it was the largest teaching hospital in the world that taught acupuncture, and it was very inexpensive. It was like $230 a week or something, and that got you a translator, got you room and board, it got you a doctor one-on-one who taught you this stuff. And I was just fascinated. I wanted to learn acupuncture. So, and I still occasionally poke myself. And there's an acupuncturist just a few blocks from here who's really good. But what China did was they passed this law, or maybe it had been on the books for a long, long time, that said basically if you want to move from your home village to some other place in the country, you have to register with and or get the permission of the police. And probably half the country, certainly the parts where there is most likely to be political unrest, the big cities. In the big cities, it might be 70, 80% of the people are not from there. They are immigrants. I mean, they're Chinese immigrants, but they're immigrants from someplace else. And they didn't get the permission of the police because it's really difficult to do. And, it's like people just don't bother. So the bottom line here is that everybody is potentially a criminal. So when somebody gets a little out of line or says something politically that isn't appreciated by the party, or starts talking about, whatever, something that they don't like, they will find a reason to put that person in jail. Oh, that person, he moved without having permission. Well, consider this in the United States. This is, by the way, this is called prosecutorial discretion. And in fact, one of our writers on the TV show, Troy Miller, first shared this with me. It's from a blog called AboveTheLaw.com. And the article is President Trump, How Bad Could It Get? And Shano made the note, this could happen with an authoritarian government. If you had an authoritarian leader like Trump, how many of us under the millennium digital copyright law, this new copyright law that we have in the United States now, it is, as I recall, a $300,000 fine plus jail time for every single song or picture or article that you have on your phone or your iPod or your computer that you didn't pay for. The vast majority of people in the United States who have a computer or a phone have some content on there. And I'm not talking about the people who are using like BitTorrent. I'm not even sure BitTorrent is doing it anymore, but who are using the dark web and going in with torrent type programs and downloading in movies and things like that. I mean, just people who know that they are engaging in copyright theft or the theft of copyrighted material. Every now and then we'll just kind of look around and see what's happening with for example, our podcasts. We sell podcasts to this program through our website, and it can be rather startling. I've discovered, a bunch of sites that are basically, illegally redistributing our podcast. But, do you want to go after them or not? Nah, it's too much trouble. And plus, people would rather have, if somebody's going to, if they really want the podcast, they would rather have the reliability of knowing that it's the first generation of the podcast and it was freshly put up and it's on our site, all that kind of stuff. So I haven't, felt the need to go after them. But that said, I could. And but imagine if it wasn't just like me. Imagine if it was the President of the United States who decided to direct the Justice Department to take out all the people who are, in his way, who he doesn't like. Richard Nixon did this. He came up with an enemies list, and he directed the IRS to audit them. He directed the FBI to spy on them. He had J. Edgar Hoover, provoking people. And we didn't learn about this until Nixon resigned in disgrace, but Richard Nixon did this in a small way. He had a list of a few hundred people that he hated. But what if it was millions of people that the president hated? Most all of us have broken some law somewhere, sometime. I jaywalked this morning. I remember it clearly. I was crossing G Street Southwest, walking up 7th toward the L'Enfant metro station, and there was absolutely no traffic in the intersection. And I walked through the intersection against a red light and against a stop walk. Right? I committed a crime. So what if somebody wanted to really, none of us are absolutely free of criminality. And like I said, particularly with the copyright laws. So what happens if prosecutors decide to start going after us? This is, by the way, this is what's been happening in minority communities for centuries and is continuing. Sandra Bland is probably the prime example of this in minority communities.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
And what happens if instead of trying to get rid of this kind of prosecutorial misconduct in minority communities, we simply expanded it to everybody in the country?
To watch more clips from our programs, hit the Watch More Videos button over here. And please be sure to hit the handy-dandy subscribe button so you'll always be up to date. Tag, you're it.